been a long time since I've done this, and it's a Sunday right now, November the 15th, as you can see down here in the corner. And pretty soon we're going to go into our shop and see what we're going to do today. We're not going to run any equipment today, but we're going to give you some demonstrations of some new things that I have around the shop here. As we said, it's been a while. And I'm going to take you on a picture tour. I don't have too much longer to live, but we'll take you on a picture tour of what's new and what we're doing around here. Okay, what we got here now is what I call Shaper number 1. We got 3 of these now, as I think I told you on the phone. This one here serves a dual purpose. But anyway, this one puts in the end of the rails, the top and the bottom rails. This puts the tenon in the rails. This has got a ring on here. It's a fixed collar that doesn't turn. I had a machinist made me that up, and I welded a little bracket onto the back, and I got it bolted in there, and I got this straight cutter on here. And I'll show you a little later what this is for. Here, this is where we're going to take our rails now first. So we're going to cut our tenons in the rail. This will be the bottom rail, and then the top rail, of course. You're making a flat top door. This is my little fixture that I welded up here. And I got a sheet of sandpaper put on here. That helps it keep from moving. But this just comes in here, clamps her down like so. Push her through like this, release it, pull her back, turn it around, clamp it down, push her through again. And this has like nothing that's measurable as far as slop or play goes. So then my stick and cope and the tenon will always match up, okay? And this is the little sawdust hood. Here's my sawdust hood that I made up out of some sheet metal that I got down at the hardware store. So this way, this fence now stays on there all the time. I don't have to go moving it in and out, and I don't have to go moving the shaft or anything up and down. This shaper serves 2 purposes, and this is one of them. Out here you might hear some humming. I got a fluorescent light that's purring its head off. So now in here we put all the tenons in the ends. And on this shaper, which was called number 2 shaper, we put all of our profiles in the edges, of course, which gets in the top rail, the bottom rail, and the 2 stiles. Now, because of the way I'm making the doors, I'm not trimming the doors after I make them now. This is at 2.5 and it stays at 2.5. So once this is profiled, it has to stay exactly 2.5 inches, or all my measurements are going to be wrong when I figure out the length of the rail that goes in between. My outside overall dimension to be wrong. So it's very important that when I run my stiles, they have to be exactly 2.5 inches. That way I just got to subtract 4.25 inches from the width of the door to get the length of my rail, okay? And to ensure that these are always at 2.5, you know, when it goes through the cutter and you're pushing it in on the cutter, and the cutter is taking your profile off, well, if these are at 2.5 when I cut them, and the profile takes, and I'm taking the full profile off the edge here, it could take off a 1/16, a 32nd, whatever it is, it's a measurable amount. So I have to make these 2 9/16 instead of 2.5, of course. That's if I always take off a 1/16. So, you know, it's starting to get too complicated already. So what I do, my material runs au contraire as to what you normally would think it to run. I'm not running against the inside fence, which is in line with the cutter. I run all material against the outside fence, right here. And when the power feeder is on, the power feeder is angled out. So it's pulling this way into this outside fence. All my stock is cut at 2 5/8. plus or minus a 1/16 of an inch, which is no big deal, because when it comes out of out here on the outside feed, it's going to be exactly 2.5 inches every time. Now, when I feed a piece of wood through, I got this outboard fence rigged up with a really strong spring right here and a pivot point back here.
That's the inboard fence,
Yep,
I
you can
meant.
see that. Okay, you see, and this fence has the profile right in here. This fence has the profile of the cutter cut into the fence, so my tear out is eliminated. I was going to say very little, but no, I won't even go that far. I'll say it's eliminated. And I feed my stock through here like so, and as you can see, the fence springs in and out with the width of it, you see? Now you can see the profile cut in the fence here. Now this piece of wood right now, it's got no profile cut on it, and it's 2 5/8. The distance in between these two fences is exactly 2.5. And this outboard fence is in line exactly with the cutter. Same as your outboard fence on your joiner, okay? So what this cutter will do now, as it's taken off this full profile, it will cut this down to exactly 2.5 inches, regardless of what it started out to be. This is the only edge that's dressed, and we stick all of them up on edge like this, like a foot or so of them, and push them all through the planer at once and dress that edge, and then that edge is finished. There's nothing else to be done with it anymore. And the power feeder, of course, swings in across the top here, like this, and feeds them through, and it's angled, pushing towards the outboard fence, and everything spits out the other side, trimmed exactly the way it is. And as you can see on this one, it also has another rail, another ring that goes around the top, and I welded it onto a bracket, and I got it bolted to the table back here. Now, 9.5 out of 10 kitchen cabinet doors that I get for order are all with the crown or the cathedral top on them. So they got to be run against a template. Now, this jig that I have put on the top of this table is a piece of 1/4-inch steel plate. And I've got 2 locating pins, 1/8-inch pins driven through here. One here and one on this side. And they're fastened to the plate, but they protrude down through the bottom of the plate. This is so when I put this plate on the table, I just move it around and bang, it drops down into place, okay? This comes off. Then for our crown tops, I take this jig here, and I put a template, or I put my rail in first, like so, and this is crowned out now. Then I put my template in on top of it, and this just sandwiches down like this on the top to hold them in place. Then with this 1/4-inch plate taken out of here, and this jig here now rides on the tabletop, this jig is also a 1/4 of an inch thick, okay? My template, the round on my template, will now ride on this collar. Same as having bearings on. Only thing with bearings burns your templates after a while, okay? So these are stationary rub collars, dead collars they're called. So this dead collar doesn't move. Then with this out of the way, this goes in, rubs up against it like so with the jig here, and bang, I cut out my arch top or my round top or cathedral top, French top, whatever the customer wants that I have templates for in order to run. Like I said, we're going to see that being done as well. This is just a brief description first, right? Something to do. Burn up some tape by. Okay, now what we got done so far, our whole framework for the door now is made. We got our left and right stiles done. We got our bottom rail done. If it's a flat top door, we have our top rail done as well. Bottom and top rail. Well, like I said, mostly everybody wants a crown top. So with a crown top, I would have just took that plate off out there on that number 2 shaper and used that little jig and ran the round top, the crown top. Then we'll come back to this jig right here now to make our panel. Of course, the panels are joined up and gluing and planed and brought down to the right thickness and dimensioned, but they still got a flat top on the panel, even if it's going to be a round top panel. Then we just lift this jig off out of place and set it aside. Now, remember, we've got 2 sets of cutters on here. We've got these bottom set of cutters that we use to cut the tenons in on the ends of our rails. Now we got a straight 1-inch cutter sitting on the top here. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring our tabletop up to the height of this cutter. Instead of bringing that shaft down, which means I got to bring it back up again and adjust it for the next operation, or next time I make a door. Instead, what we're going to do is put another top on the table. Now this cutter down here is gone. Here's our new tabletop. Now we got our dead color right here, and we got this straight cutter here. Then I would take my raised panel jig, which is this baby. This is my raised panel jig. Okay. Now I made this myself too. I got a whole set of these. Okay. From a 7.5-inch door up to a 20-some-odd-inch door. This one here happened to be for a 19-inch door. A 19-inch door takes a 15 1/8-inch wide panel. And this is with your proper curvature of your top. See? I got a little locating pin in here and a notch cut out of here which centers this. This just slides in here, goes back into that notch. Then I would take my panel, and here's one that's already done. See? Now obviously this ain't not for a 19.5-inch door, so this ain't the right template for there, you know, right? But first let me show you when it's not done what it looks like. Okay. At this time, this panel will still be flat across the top here. Alright? I put it out so it's at the highest point right here. I move these in till it hits the side of the panel. And I'm centered. I got center lines marked out on here. Tighten up these 2 knobs that I put on here. What they do now, they're sucking this down into the track. Got this template pinched so the template can't move. Right? Then I lock these down in place. Now this, I don't need it, these 2 on these ones because this is a short door. Okay, now we'll take this and turn it around. Now our dead color here now is going to run on this template. Now here's our template in here, and here's our door. Now this template's going to run on this dead color, like this. And this cutter, this is called a hog. This is a hogging cutter. It's a straight cutter, but this operation is called hogging the panel. This template's going to run on here, and it's going to hog this panel out to the shape of this. You see, as she rides up on here, like so. And this here is to eliminate tear out, see? This is what our panel would look like when I just got done with that operation. The top would be formed out like it is right there now. Okay, and then we can come back out to this shaper, which is shaper number 3. Now, down in here, I can lift this up right here. And again, this is all my own design here. Now I can get down into here with my wrench and take my raised panel cutter off, okay? With the big, you can't see it. This is spring loaded too, you see, to hold pressure down on the panel. There's a spring tension that I adjust right there. So, put this down, this for chip deflection. I can look down through to see plexiglass top what I'm doing. Now what we got is a 3/4 inch panel that's just got this on it. Of course we want it to come out looking like this. So I would start underneath the edge here. Now this, again, down in here, it's got another rub collar, a dead collar, that's going to follow the roundness of this, you see? So we start up against the flat fence here, come in against it, follow around and around and around. Now if I want, I can keep going, buzz straight side, buzz across the bottom, and buzz across the top. Okay? And this whole time that this is going on, this thing here has got downward pressure sitting on the panel. And this is, your hand can't slip, you can't get in, you can't get over. You would have to go down here, and I can't even reach the cutter now by trying to put my finger in there. The only thing, you would have to have the wood completely out and shove your fingers underneath there. And even now I've got spring pressure down on my fingers, like I'm forcing this up to get my fingers in under, so it's perfectly safe. And we're going to see it done, we're going to see it in operation, as I told you, when we get going. If I got a lot to do and they're normal doors, you know, 29, 7, 8, 30 and a half wide, what I would do then, now this fence over here is welded right to the ring, so the material can't pull out and tear the sides off, because it's got nowhere to pull it. This one here is shaped out and fits right in against the side of the collar again. Of course, run these 2 bolts down through that I drilled into the top of the table, like so. I take my power feeder off of shaper number 2, drop her into here, power feeder will come over here and sit, the 3 wheels on the power feeder will sit here. These are alignment pins for the power feeder. The sides of the power feeder hits up against this, so she can't pull in or pull out on her own, and she's angled this time pushing into the fence. So what I do, I run them all first by hand to put this on here. Then I just sit here like this with them, give them a push to it right there. By now the outside wheel on the power feeder takes it, pulls it all the way through, keeps it perfectly straight because it's against this fence. I take it out and turn it, she pulls it all the way through and keeps passing her through like that all the time. If I got a lot to do, it just takes the extra, you know, because when you're doing this, you're holding that sumbitch tight, and it don't make your fingers as sore the next day as trying to hold that down and in at the same time by doing it by hand. But if I got an order less than 25 or 30 doors, I won't even bother with it. I'll just spin them all by hand that way. But this is our number 3 shaper here. And because all 3 shapers now are set up at the same time, I never moved the height up and down on my cutters. I never moved my fences in and out. I just changed the whole tabletop, as you've seen. Everything is in a perfect alignment. So that way, when the doors go together, the height between the rails and the stiles are within a thickness of a piece of paper. That's all. So instead of going through the sander a whole lot to take them down, you go through the sander one side, 1 pass per side per grid. In case you're wondering where the heck everything I managed to put it at, Pop, you probably figured it out from the pieces you've seen, but there's number 1 shaper sitting over. What I done, I moved the bandsaw down to the radio arm saw a little bit more, and I still got my grinder sitting there in the corner, and put the number 1 shaper right there, because that's only a tenon shaper for doing the tenons, and for rounding off that arch on the crown top. So that's plenty of room. I don't need any room, a big inboard and outboard feed on that one. And here's a close-up of my tenon jig that I made up there. And there's the other top that goes on. Raised the bed. It raises the bed an inch to get me up over that bottom cutter and in line with the top cutter. And the joiner is still in the same place where it always was. And now the number 2 shaper is the original, and it stayed where it always was because I got 12 feet on one side of it and unlimited number of feet on the other side. If I just put the garage door up, I got I think it's 8 or 9 feet from it now to the garage door, and 12 feet on the outboard side on this side. Of course, it's the one that runs the stiles through, and on some pantry doors the stiles can be up to 61 and a half inches long. So that's the number 2 shaper, which does 2 operations as well by changing the top, the same as the number 1 shaper. So there's 4 operations done on 2 shapers. And this guy here now, that's number 3 shaper, is over hiding in the corner. It's on wheels, as of course everything is here. My toolbox stayed where it always was. I took that machinist chest out and put it down in the shed, and this shaper slides in here, and of course I bring it out into the middle of the floor because I need room to run it if I'm running big panels. And that's number 3 shaper, as I said, and it also is a dual function. It will make your round top, your crown tops, and also your straight tops and your sides by just putting that extra outboard fence on to keep everything in line. So there it is. That's in the operation of a kitchen cabinet door.